To literally everyone out there, this is going to be very, very controversial, but you got to hear me out here, yeah? Sports betting is better than investing, in my opinion anyways. Now, just before we start this, I just want to say I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not funded by big gambling. I'm not working in finance, nothing like that. I'm just a guy who bets on sports, and I also invest myself. So I have a bit of a rounded perspective when it comes to this. But yeah, when I mean investing, I'm not talking about buying property or bloody crypto. I ain't talking about putting your money into Bitcoin. I'm talking straight S&P 500, stock market, savings, all of that stuff, yeah. For most people, investing is a safe option. You put however much money you got, just load it up in S&P 500, Trading 212 app. Simple, man. You just buy some, leave it there. You come back every couple months, see how it's doing, and that's that. That's literally it. That's all you have to do, and it's quite simple, and it's quite a useful way to build up wealth. Everyone should be doing it, at least, in my humble opinion, because you can yield 10%, 12%, what have you. However much it yields yearly, you can yield that much, and it compounds. What you make, 10%, next year is whatever that was, plus another 10%. And it just builds up. It's incredible. With that being said, I still do think that sports betting is better, and I'm gonna get into that now. So this is a debate I've been seeing going on online, and I just thought I'd give you my unsolicited 2 cents into this debate. But yeah, I mean, sports betting, you don't think of it as investing, do you? When you think of sports betting, you think about them crypto casinos, rain bet. I just think about them IRL prank videos, and then the bloody guy gets his phone out and he just has a rainbow on for no reason, and it's just so annoying. The perception of gambling has been ruined by these people, but there is a lot to yield from sports betting in particular, and that's why I think it's so powerful. Now, when it comes to profiting on sports betting, you're gonna find a lot of charlatans out there. They're telling you they got these legendary guaranteed win picks. All you have to do is just pay £100 a month, and you get access to these picks that never lose, these tips. You know, horse racing tipster, they make £1,000 profit every single day, and all you have to do is just subscribe. Alright, that's not what I'm talking about. That does not apply, because they are all charlatans, they're all scammers, and they make profit from selling a subscription. I'm talking straight up value betting. This is the gold, in my opinion. This is where you can actually beat an investment sort of growth through value betting, because value betting in itself, to me, is a form of investment. I invest my own money, and I put faith in the efficient markets that I bet on, and I put faith in the hypothesis of efficient markets. So your value betting as a concept is very simple, right? We ascribe a sort of expected profit and edge to each bet that we place. We might place a £100 bet and put a 3% expected value, a 3% edge on it. That means that we expect to make 3% of our stake. We put down £100, we expect to make £3 from that bet. Right? That's where the edge comes from. We derive these edges by, you might have your own calculations, or you may use a sort of a bookie's odds as a sort of framework. I'm thinking Pinnacle, maybe just aggregate soft bookmakers or the exchanges in themselves as well. You can use all sorts of different ways to derive a fair odds value, and then you can take your own odds and find a way to beat the market through doing that. That's your edge in the market. Right? I'm so passionate about this. You can see this in my face. Yeah, you can create your own edges in the market and put down your money into these edges. Right? You can constantly churn your bankroll through it. And that's the power of sports betting. Investment is 8 to 10%. Let's S&P investment, 8 to 10%, most likely per year, on the money that you invest. If I put down 50k in the S&P 500, in 1 year's time, if we assume that the rate is 10%, that's £5,000 profit, or should I say investment yield. And in the next year, that 55,000 becomes what, 61,000. Alright, and then it goes on so on and so forth. Next year was £67,600, and it just goes on and on and on, right? 67,100, I think. I'm not too sure. But anyways, sports betting is completely different, because our return on investment is per bet. Alright, when we place a £100 bet, that 3% edge is on that £100. When we place £10,000 worth of bets, and let's say we yield a 3% edge on that, That's 3% of the £10,000 worth of bets that we placed. Alright, you see where I'm going here with this? How hard is it to get £100,000 and lob it up into the S&P 500? It's quite hard, isn't it? Trying to raise all that capital just to have it rot there for so long, and you can't do anything about it. You just have to watch it get bigger. Only to you 10%. Alright? On the contrary, how hard is it to place £100,000 worth of bets? That's not very hard to me, in my honest opinion, because that's £5,000 worth of bets across 20 days. Alright, you can do 100k turnover in 1 month sports betting, and if you yield 3% on that, 100k, 3% yield on that is £3,000. If you can do that in 1 month, you see where I'm going with this? You can make £3,000 each month, in theory, if you have a very idealistic world when you can make 3% edge on your bets and somehow stake £100,000 each month. To most people, that's just unachievable. To stake £100,000 worth of bets, you're gonna need at least a little bit of bankroll. Let's say £10,000, £20,000 to start with, minimum. Not only that, you also have to have the capabilities of getting that much money down. It's time consuming. Not everyone's got the time to bloody wake up and place thousands of pounds worth of bets and then go work and then come back and do the same thing again. Some of us just want our Sundays and our Saturdays to ourselves. We don't want to spend it on bloody betfair and markets. So I get it. I completely understand, and I see where investing might be more simple in that sense and much more easier on the mind. Furthermore, you also have to deal with bankroll management. Alright, if you have a 10k, 20k bankroll and you put it down on bets, alright, you might lose a lot of it, 50% of it, 70%, the entire thing. Risk of ruin is there, and you'll suffer with severe head loss. Alright, I see why the other side, the investment S&P side, I see why they have their arguments, and it's compelling. But from my own perspective, as someone who's been doing this for such a long time, I have faith in my own bets and the fact that I won't burn through my entire bankroll. We have measures in place to make sure we don't do that. Certain staking strategies, Kelly I'm thinking of in particular, even Kelly in itself is quite dangerous, so fractional Kelly is much better. There's other ways of maintaining your bankroll, doing a certain amount of turnover per day and not exceeding that. Just being very mindful of your wins, your losses, profit loss. There are so many different ways to mitigate and control the loss and the risk. And the thing with sports betting is that you can create an edge in the betting markets. Alright? Whether that be creating your own odds, I've said this before, whether that creating your own odds or tailgating off of other people's odds, you can create your own edge. You can beat the market yourself. Whereas when you're betting in the S&P, find that investing is very, very hard to beat the S&P 500. Alright, it's very hard to beat their 8 to 10% ROI. Whereas when it comes to sports betting, you can very easily find an edge and scale up that edge. Find edges that are high, really high in and of themselves as well. I mean, every day I'm probably finding some bets that are 10-20% edge, and you can compound the edge. You can do bloody lucky 15s where you have 10% edge, 10% edge, 10% edge, 10% edge all in one bet. Alright? Load them all up together. I mean, the variance is through the roof, but the value is there. You have to consider it. When it comes to actually finding your own edges are very accessible in my opinion. There's tons of softwares that do the dirty work for you. Softwares that are very simple in their nature and very complicated. Now, I'm not here to shill off any softwares. I'm not affiliated with any. But my first video on my channel, right here, go, that I have gone over the softwares there and in good detail as well. You can watch that video, find out more about how to actually make profit from sports betting. On the contrary, you know, there are edges you can find yourself. Becoming a data scientist, a genius mathematician, go to bloody Oxbridge, come back just to gamble. Alright, I see the vision. I do have my own edges as well. I'm not a data scientist, mathematician, I'm not a genius. I just think if you spend enough time looking at the market, there are certain processes that the market follow, and all you have to do is just hop on at the right times. And to me, that's an edge, and that's an edge that I can exploit and that I benchmark against fair odds that I derive from Pinnacle or just an aggregation of other odds. And value and edges are very much there. All you gotta do is just find them and bet on them heavy. With that being said, I think we need to go back to reality here. 99% of people, whether that be 99% of people watching this video or just in the real world, they should stick to investing. I'm telling you that I think sports betting is better than investing. I'm saying that from my own lens, from my own perspective, and for how it works out in my life. For the majority, stick to investing, alright? Sports betting is not for the weak. You get downswings that are so down. You can have a 10k bankroll one day, you place a couple of bets, next day that bankroll is 5k. And guess what, the day after that, you do the same thing. You have a 5k bankroll, place a couple bets, next week the entire thing's gone. Once you're confident in your edges and you're confident in sports betting, and you know that losses are inevitable, and that that's just the way of a gambling life, then you know, at that point maybe you should consider sports betting as your main investment, and to hold a majority of your fund in your sports betting accounts, exchanges and whatnot, following some sort of stupid like trading system, like you know them charlatans like the betfair trading community guys, or what's the other one, trading the market. their systems, lay the first half winner under 2.5 goals, 3.5 lay the draw market, oh my god, don't do that. If you're doing that, yeah, you don't have an edge. You're betting into an efficient market. You're just selling out in the same efficient market. You're gonna break even and minus commission. The way I like to think about those videos is, you're not trading, you're betting on whether something's gonna happen within the next 10 or 15 minutes, right? Because they follow such stupidly strict rules where place a bet, then you must trade out in 15 minutes or something like that. You're literally just betting on a goal to not be scored in the next 15 minutes. You are gambling. Now, okay, it's trading in the sense that you sell the position and you're doing it on an exchange, so the losses won't be too bad. It's just dumb. Don't do it. If you're doing that, you're not investing at all, you're gambling. But yeah, sports betting is so much cooler than investing because of the scale behind it. You can take your 10k bankroll, churn it through 10 times in 1 month or even less than a month, and now your bankroll is sitting at maybe 13,000-14,000, and in the next month you can churn through that and stake even more, and now you're at 17,000-18,000. You can get to a point where you're staking £250,000 a month. Let's even say 1 or 2% edge, that's still 2,500 to 5,000 a month. It's idealistic to get that same amount of EV in terms of actual profit, but I don't see how it's any very different to investing, right? Because investing has ups and downs, but then generally speaking it follows a gradual upward momentum. It's literally no different to sports betting. You decide whether or not sports betting is for you, but if you do invest, props to you, alright? There is not enough financial education out there, and many people are not investing when they should be. Me myself, I do invest because I do enjoy sports betting and gambling in that sense, but I recognize that there is a risk of ruin there behind it, and liquidity is an issue to a point where the amount of money that I have invested in S&P, I could not convert it into something meaningful in sports betting, simply because there isn't enough liquidity to sort of take on the bankroll that I have. Therefore it makes much more sense for me to segregate some funds into S&P 500 and other into sports betting. But nonetheless, sports betting is still a main catalyst of growing my sort of finances, and to me it's an investment in that sense. But yeah, just keep that in mind the next time you decide to place a bet, or the next time you decide to buy some S&P 500. I hope you did enjoy this little rambling. I just wanted to give my unprovoked, undesired opinion